My HR manager marked me as uncooperative. The call log told a different story. For 5 years, I was the most dedicated employee at our mid-sized logistics company. I worked in the client support department, handling complex shipping issues and calming down angry customers. I loved my job because I was good at it. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us build a stronger community every single day. I knew the software better than anyone, and I had a reputation for being the person who could solve problems that nobody else could touch. My performance reviews were always perfect. My previous manager, Mr. Henderson, used to call me his rock. He trusted me completely and let me work independently because he knew I always got the job done. I stayed late when needed, helped train new hires without asking for extra pay, and truly cared about the company's success. I thought I would work there forever. But everything changed overnight when Mr. Henderson retired to move to Florida. The company hired a new HR manager named Linda to oversee our department's restructuring. From the very first moment Linda walked into our office, I got a terrible feeling in my stomach. She didn't smile at anyone. She looked at us like we were problems that needed to be fixed, not people who worked hard. She immediately started changing all the rules, and for some reason, she decided that I was her #1 target. Linda was obsessed with culture fit and visible cooperation. To her, this meant attending endless, pointless meetings and constantly smiling, even when things were going wrong. I was a quiet person who preferred to keep my head down and focus on my actual work. I didn't spend time gossiping in the break room or laughing loudly at her unfunny jokes. Because I was focused on efficiency, she decided I was difficult. It started with small, passive-aggressive comments. She would walk past my desk and say, "You look so serious, you should smile more," or, "Why didn't you speak up in the meeting today?" I tried to explain that I was busy solving urgent client tickets, but she just rolled her eyes. She started scheduling mandatory check-in calls with me at the most inconvenient times, right when our call volume was highest. If I was even 1 minute late to her calls because I was helping a customer, she would sigh loudly and write something down in her notebook. I could feel the walls closing in on me. I tried to be friendlier, but nothing I did was ever enough for her. She had already decided that my quiet dedication was actually a sign of disrespect. The first official strike against me came on a busy Monday morning. I had spent 3 hours handling a massive shipping crisis for our biggest client. I skipped my lunch break and didn't even go to the bathroom because I was so focused on fixing the issue. Around 2 p.m., I finally resolved the problem and saved the account. I felt proud of myself. But 10 minutes later, I received an email from Linda with the subject line, "Concern regarding your attitude." I opened it, confused. The email stated that I was being marked as uncooperative because I had failed to answer a phone call from her at 11:30 a.m. She claimed she had called me to discuss a team-building event and that I had ignored her call to avoid speaking with her. She wrote that my behavior was disrespectful to leadership and damaged team morale. I stared at the screen in shock. I checked my desk phone. There was no missed call at 11:30 a.m. I checked my cell phone. No missed call. I checked my email and chat logs. Nothing. She had never called me. I realized with a sinking heart that this wasn't a misunderstanding. She was lying to create a paper trail against me. I immediately replied to her email, keeping my tone professional and polite. I explained that I had been on the line with our biggest client for the entire morning and that I had no record of a call from her at 11:30 a.m. I even offered to send her my call history to prove I wasn't ignoring her. I thought that presenting the facts would clear up the confusion. I was wrong. Linda didn't care about facts. She replied 10 minutes later, copying her boss, the director of operations. Her response was chilling. "Please do not be defensive," she wrote. "This is exactly the uncooperative attitude I am referring to. Instead of taking accountability for your poor communication, you are arguing with management. We need team players who are willing to listen, not make excuses. Let's discuss this in a formal meeting tomorrow." My hands started shaking. She had twisted my attempt to defend myself into further proof of my bad attitude. By copying the director, she was escalating the situation and painting a false picture of me to the upper management. I realized she was trying to build a case to fire me. I went home that night feeling sick, unable to eat dinner. The meeting the next morning was a nightmare. I walked into the small, glass-walled conference room, and Linda was sitting there with a thick file folder in front of her. She didn't offer me a seat or say hello. She just opened the folder and pushed a piece of paper toward me. It was a formal performance improvement plan, or PIP. In the corporate world, a PIP is usually the final step before you get fired. It basically means they want you gone. I read through the document, and my jaw dropped. It was filled with vague, subjective complaints. Employee fails to foster a positive environment. Employee is difficult to reach. Employee resists feedback. There was not a single mention of my actual work performance, my sales numbers, or my client satisfaction scores, which were all perfect. It was entirely based on her personal opinion of my personality. "I am putting you on a 30-day probation," Linda said coldly, tapping her pen on the table. "You need to show significant improvement in your cooperativeness and availability. If you miss a single call or display any more attitude, your employment will be terminated immediately." I felt trapped. How could I improve on vague, made-up problems? I signed the document because I had no choice. If I refused, she would have fired me on the spot for insubordination. I walked back to my desk, feeling like a criminal. I needed this job. My wife and I were saving for a house, and we couldn't afford for me to be unemployed. I decided I would do everything perfectly. I would be the most cooperative, available employee she had ever seen. I turned the volume on my phone all the way up. I checked my email every 30 seconds. I smiled at everyone who walked by, even though I felt like crying inside. For the next 2 weeks, I was walking on eggshells. Every time Linda walked past my desk, my heart raced. She would stop and stare at me for a few seconds, looking for any flaw, any mistake. It was psychological torture. Despite my best efforts, she continued to find faults. She criticized the font I used in my emails. She complained that I typed too loudly. She said my desk was cluttered because I had 2 notepads on it. It became obvious that she wasn't looking for improvement. She was just biding her time until the 30 days were up so she could get rid of me. The pressure was eating me alive. I started having trouble sleeping. I would wake up at 3 a.m., panicking about whether I had remembered to reply to every single email within 5 minutes. My wife, Sarah, noticed the change in me. "You look exhausted," she said one evening. "Is everything okay at work?" I didn't want to worry her, so I downplayed it. "Just a new manager," I said. "She's a bit strict, but I can handle it." I didn't tell her that my job was hanging by a thread or that I was being targeted by a woman who seemed to hate me for no reason. I felt ashamed. I had always been the successful, stable one. Now I felt weak and powerless. I kept telling myself to just survive the 30 days. If I could just make it through the probation without a single slip-up, she would have no grounds to fire me. I just had to be perfect. But Linda had other plans. She wasn't going to wait for me to mess up. She was going to manufacture a mistake. On a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks into my probation, Linda sent me a calendar invite for a quick sync at 4 p.m. I accepted it immediately. At 3:55 p.m., I went to the conference room she had booked. I sat there waiting. 4 p.m. came and went. 4:05 p.m. 4:10 p.m. She didn't show up. I checked my email to see if she had rescheduled, but there was nothing. I sat there for 20 minutes, terrified to leave in case she arrived and accused me of walking out. Finally, at 4:30 p.m., I went back to my desk. 10 minutes later, I got a furious email from her. "I called your desk phone 3 times for our meeting," she wrote. "You were not there. This is a clear violation of your performance improvement plan. We agreed you would be available. I am documenting this as a final warning." I stared at the email, my blood boiling. I wasn't at my desk because I was in the conference room she had invited me to. And I had my cell phone with me the whole time. It never rang. She was setting me up. She had booked a room, not shown up, and then claimed she called my desk while I was waiting for her. It was a trap. I stormed over to her office, but her door was locked and the lights were off. She had gone home for the day immediately after sending the email, so I couldn't confront her. I stood there in the hallway, shaking with rage. This wasn't just unfair, it was evil. She was gaslighting me. She was inventing a reality where I was a terrible employee, and she was putting it all in my permanent file. I went back to my desk and tried to type a reply, but I stopped. If I argued with her via email, she would just mark me as defensive again. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I couldn't just say she didn't call, I had to prove it. But how? She was the HR manager. She controlled the narrative. Then I looked down at my desk phone. It was a high-tech Cisco VoIP phone. It wasn't just a regular landline, it was connected to the company's network. Every call, every second of talk time, every missed connection was logged on a server somewhere. I remembered that my friend Dave worked in the IT department. Dave and I played basketball together sometimes. He was the key. I waited until the next morning to approach Dave. I didn't want to send an email that Linda could track. I walked down to the basement where the IT department was located. It was cool and quiet, humming with the sound of servers. Dave was sitting at his desk, eating a bagel. "Hey man," I said, trying to sound casual. "Got a minute?" Dave spun his chair around. "What's up, Alex? You look terrible." I sat down and told him everything. I told him about the PIP, the fake meetings, the accusations of missed calls, and the trap Linda had set yesterday. Dave listened quietly, his expression getting serious. "She's trying to fire me, Dave," I said. "She says I'm uncooperative because I don't answer her calls. But the phone never rings. I need to know if there's a way to see the actual logs." Dave looked at the door to make sure we were alone. "We track everything," he whispered. "The system logs every single packet of data. Incoming, outgoing, internal, external. If she dialed your extension, there's a record. If she didn't, there isn't. Can you get me the logs?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Dave hesitated. "Alex, technically, only management is supposed to request those reports. If she finds out I gave them to you, I could get in trouble." I looked him in the eye. "Dave, I have a mortgage. We're trying to have a baby. She's going to ruin my life with these lies. I just need the truth. Please." Dave sighed and turned to his keyboard. "Give me the dates and times she claimed she called you." I pulled out my notebook where I had obsessively documented every accusation. "Yesterday at 4 p.m., I said. "Last Monday at 11:30 a.m. And 2 weeks ago on Friday at 9 a.m. Dave's fingers flew across the keyboard. He pulled up the master server logs for the entire telecommunications system. He filtered by my extension number. Then he filtered by Linda's extension number. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. "Alex," he said, "you're going to want to see this." I leaned in and looked at the complex lines of data on his monitor. "What does it say?" I asked. Dave pointed to the timestamp for yesterday afternoon. "Here is your extension activity," he explained. "At 3:55 p.m., you logged out of your phone, probably when you went to the conference room. But look at Linda's extension." He pulled up her log. At 4 p.m., when she claimed she was calling you, her phone was idle. She didn't dial anyone. In fact, look at this. He pointed to another line of code. At 4:02 p.m., she was active on her computer, but she was browsing a shopping website. At 4:15 p.m., she sent an email. There is zero voice traffic from her extension to yours. Not yesterday. Not last Monday. Not 2 weeks ago. I felt a wave of relief so strong it almost knocked me over. I wasn't crazy. She had never called. She had simply sat at her desk, lied, and written me up for it. "She lied," I whispered. "She completely lied." Dave nodded. "It's all here. The system doesn't lie. She can fake her handwritten notes, but she can't fake the server data." "I need a copy," I said. "I need a full report of all activity between her extension and mine for the last 3 months." Dave nodded. "I'll do better than that. I'll generate a verified system report with the official IT seal. It proves exactly what happened and what didn't happen. But you can't just show this to her. She'll bury it." He was right. If I showed it to Linda, she would just find another excuse or claim I hacked the system. I needed to go over her head. The final review meeting for my PIP is next Tuesday, I said. She's going to fire me then. The director, Mr. Sterling, will be there to witness it. Dave printed out a thick stack of papers. Take said, wait until Mr. Sterling is in the room. Don't play your hand until the very last second. I took the warm pages from the printer. They felt like a weapon. For the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid. I felt dangerous. I hid the report in my backpack and went back upstairs to my desk. The weekend before the final meeting was strange. I was calm, but underneath, I was burning with anticipation. I spent Sunday reviewing the logs Dave had given me. They were incredibly detailed. They showed that on the days Linda claimed I was unavailable, I was actually on the phone with clients for hours. It showed that she had called me exactly 0 times in the last month. The only communication we had was via email, which I had printed out as well. I organized everything into a neat binder. Tab A, Linda's accusations. Tab B, the performance improvement plan. Tab C, the undeniable truth. I rehearsed what I would say. I knew I only had one shot. If I messed this up, I would look like a paranoid conspiracy theorist. I had to be calm, professional, and absolutely ruthless with the facts. Looked at the mirror and told myself, you are not uncooperative. You are innocent. And you are going to prove it. Tuesday morning arrived with a gray, overcast sky. The atmosphere in the office was heavy. Linda ignored me when I walked in. She was busy preparing the termination paperwork. I could see her in the printer room, collating documents that I knew were my firing papers. She looked smug. She thought she had won. She thought I was just a quiet, weak employee who would sign the papers, cry a little, and leave quietly. She had no idea that the uncooperative IT department had armed me with a nuclear option. At 10 a.m., the calendar invite popped up, final performance review. It was time. I grabbed my binder. I walked to the conference room. Linda was there, sitting at the head of the table. Mr. Sterling, the director of operations, was sitting next to her. He looked uncomfortable. He liked me. He had always praised my work before Linda arrived. But Linda had clearly poisoned him against me. Sit down, Alex, Linda said, gesturing to the lone chair on the other side of the table. Thank you for joining us, Linda began, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. As you know, today marks the end of your 30-day performance improvement plan. We are here to review your progress. She opened her folder. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts to support you, the documentation shows a continued pattern of uncooperative behavior. You have failed to improve your availability, you have missed multiple scheduled check-ins, and your attitude remains defensive. Mr. Sterling looked down at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. We have multiple incidents on record, Linda continued, pulling out her handwritten notes. On the 14th, you missed a call. On the 22nd, you failed to attend a meeting. Last Thursday, you ignored 3 urgent calls to your desk. She looked at Mr. Sterling. It is my recommendation that Alex be terminated for cause, effective immediately. She slid a termination letter across the table. Please sign here to acknowledge receipt. I didn't reach for the pen. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded on top of my binder. Before we proceed, I said, my voice steady and clear, I would like to address the specific accusations regarding the missed calls. Linda sighed loudly. Alex, please. We are not here to debate. The decision has been made. Arguing now just proves our point about your difficulty accepting feedback. She looked at Mr. Sterling. See? This is exactly what I deal with every day. Mr. Sterling looked at me sadly. Alex, the documentation is there. Linda has logged these incidents. It's better to just leave with dignity. I looked Mr. Sterling in the eye. Sir, I respect you and this company. That is why I cannot sign a document that is based on false information. I have evidence that proves these calls never happened. Linda laughed, a short, sharp bark. False information? Are you calling me a liar? Yes, I said calmly. I am. The room went dead silent. Mr. Sterling's eyes widened. Linda's face turned bright red. This is insubordination, she shouted. You are fired. Get out of this office immediately. Not yet, I said. I opened my binder. Mr. Sterling, this company uses a Cisco VoIP server system. As you know, it logs every single interaction on the network for security and quality assurance purposes. I saw a flicker of panic in Linda's eyes. She knew what VoIP was, but she clearly didn't realize how detailed the logs were. I have here the certified server logs from the IT department for the last 30 days, I continued, pulling out the thick stack of papers Dave had printed. These are not my notes. These are the raw data from the company servers. I slid the report over to Mr. Sterling, not Linda. Please look at the highlighted sections. Mr. Sterling put on his reading glasses and looked at the report. What am I looking at? He asked. On page 3, I explained. That is the log for last Thursday at 4 p.m. Linda claims she called me 3 times. The log shows 0 outgoing calls from her extension between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Mr. Sterling paused. He looked closely at the paper. It says, idle, he muttered. Turn to page 5, I said. That is the date of the supposed team building call. Again, 0 voice traffic. I pulled out Linda's emails, the ones where she accused me of ignoring her, and placed them next to the logs. She sent these emails accusing me of missing calls that the server proves were never made. She manufactured these incidents to create grounds for termination. Linda stood up. This is ridiculous. He probably forged those. You can't trust him, he's uncooperative. Her voice was shrill now, desperate. Mr. Sterling held up his hand to silence her. He was reading the logs intently. He flipped through the pages. He looked at the IT certification stamp on the bottom. This is an official report, he said quietly. Dave from IT signed off on this. He looked up at Linda. His expression had changed completely. It wasn't uncomfortable anymore, it was cold. Linda, he said, did you call Alex on Thursday? I might have dialed the wrong number, she stammered. Or maybe the phone system was down. You know how glitchy the technology is. The system was not down, I interjected. You can see on the same page that I received 4 calls from clients during that exact hour. My phone was working perfectly. Yours was just not calling me. Linda was trapped. Her lies were unraveling in real time. He's hacking the system, she yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. This is a security breach. He should be arrested. It's not a breach to print your own activity logs, Mr. Sterling said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low register. He closed the binder and looked at Linda with a look of absolute disappointment. Linda, you told me that Alex was a cancer to this team. You told me he refused to. But these logs show he is on the phone with clients 6 hours a day. And they show that you have fabricated every single infraction on this PIP. He picked up the termination letter Linda had prepared for me. He looked at it for a moment, then ripped it in half. The sound of the tearing paper was the loudest thing in the room. Linda's face went pale. She sank back into her chair. She realized she had lost. She had tried to bully the wrong person. Alex, Mr. Sterling said, turning to me. I want to apologize. I should have verified these claims myself instead of blindly trusting the HR reports. You have been a loyal employee for 5 years, and I failed to protect you. Thank you, sir, I said. I just want to do my job. Mr. Sterling nodded. Then he turned to Linda. Linda, please pack your things. Linda gasped. What? You can't be serious. Over a few phone calls. It's not about the phone calls, Mr. Sterling said sharply. It's about integrity. You falsified performance records to terminate a high-performing employee. That is a massive legal liability for this company. If we fired him and he took these logs to a lawyer, he would own us. You are done here. Linda tried to argue, but Mr. Sterling stood up and opened the door. Now, he commanded. Linda grabbed her purse and her folder. She shot me one last look of pure hatred, but it didn't have any power anymore. She walked out of the conference room, her heels clicking rapidly on the floor as she rushed away to save face. I sat there, breathing deeply. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me feeling exhausted but incredibly light. Mr. Sterling sat back down. "I'm going to remove this PIP from your file immediately," he said. "It never happened. And I'm going to approve that raise you requested last year. We can't afford to lose someone who keeps such detailed records." He smiled a little. I walked back to my desk, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like everyone was watching me. I felt secure. Dave from IT walked by a few minutes later. He didn't stop, but he gave me a subtle nod. I nodded back. We both knew what had just happened. Linda was escorted out of the building by security an hour later. She tried to make a scene, claiming she was the victim of a toxic male culture, but nobody listened. The evidence was black and white. She had tried to play a game of deception against a system that recorded the truth. Life at the office returned to normal after that. A new HR manager was hired, a nice guy who actually cared about helping people. He reviewed my file and asked me to lead the training for the new hires. I accepted. I still keep that binder of call logs in my bottom drawer, just in case. It's a reminder that in the corporate world, your best defense isn't just hard work or loyalty. It's documentation. Linda marked me as uncooperative, but she forgot one important thing. Cooperation is a two-way street. And if you try to run someone off the road, you better make sure there isn't a traffic camera watching your every move. The call logs told a different story, and that story saved my career.